What's up, guys? I'm making another video here in my journey to becoming a profitable prop firm trader. I've got my accounts up here. I had an amazing day today, but I do also want to cover a trade I took yesterday. I didn't have enough time to record it. It wasn't particularly interesting, but as you can see today, up $420. I took three trades. One of them was break even. The other two were winners. Um, Two pretty much A plus setups for me. Really happy I took advantage of them and waited for them to show up. So I'll go through today's trades and then I'll quickly touch on yesterday's trades. As you can see, overall, across all my accounts, I'm now up 1K, which is really cool. And let's jump in. So the trades that I took, and I'll put on the trade history so you guys can see the exact entries and exits. I took a long relatively early. I didn't really like the idea of taking a trade within the first hour today. We'd had this massive run up during pre-market where I felt normally when you get a move like this, it just doesn't lead to particularly clean price action early on because the market's trying to figure out whether there's going to be more bullish momentum to come or whether there's going to be now a lot of selling because we're gapping up so much essentially. But we did actually have a potential long. We came into this area that was support during pre-market. It's not the clearest area, but it is an area. And we formed this flag across here that initially held at the open and then sold off with aggression. Once this flag then broke, I liked the idea of getting in. Now I didn't get in with massive size. I only took one contract risking about $100. And the thought process was, if this does begin pushing, we're going to also see potentially a lot of buyers come in through high of day, which we could essentially get a really quick spike. So I did take this is probably not quite a good enough setup for me. So I do need to tighten up on this still because I don't think it was the best trade, but I don't think it was horrible. We did get a push higher into this into uh, the initial highs. And I decided at that point I would pretty much just cut the risk on it. As it sold off, I took it off for I think it was like $8 profit, so nothing really there. In the end, it would have stopped me out for a loss because I'd moved my stop already. Yeah, like I said, it wasn't a great trade. I was watching to see if we'd get a short opportunity in around here after we failed to get over this area and then finally formed a flag here, but there was just too much strength. And again, I wasn't desperate to find a trade early on because I did feel that it'd be better to wait for some clearer levels to set up. So I then had nothing until we got all the way up here. And what I liked with this is the high that was set around about 11 a.m. on the daily chart is also the all-time highs. Now I know that this is just this contract and the Nasdaq itself is going to be slightly different, but people will still be looking at this area as a potential top. And what I saw here was we formed a range, and normally what I see with ranges is when we get an attempt of a break of that range, either we break it quite cleanly, hold a high low and then rip higher, or we break out, we fail, and we sell off back to the bottom of that range. And that's exactly what we got here. So we came into the highs of the area. You could kind of put it around here. And we formed a flag. And my rules, very simple. I want the flag to last at least 7 minutes and then break with aggression, which is exactly what we did. So for me, I'm going, look, we've got an area that I want to be a potential seller at, high of day, we're in a range. We have a flag that forms. We break out of that range. The way that I then trade, I mentioned this, I believe, in a previous video. I'm then looking at it saying longs and shorts. We've got a lot of people who are long who have taken this breakout in here. Anybody who was short they've now been stopped out. So we've got an imbalance of active market participants, and as a result, the potential, if it starts selling off, is to come down pretty aggressively. So I drew in my flag, and once this flag broke, I was getting in short. And as you can see, my entry was on the break of this candle. My risk, I'll put it in the position that I had. So this was my entry. My risk was to the highs. And then my target was going to be the first higher low that gives at least 1R, which in this instance was down here. So it was going to be around about 27. It's a tick off, but that's fine. And I don't love the way that I'm doing this at the moment, but I can understand why. I got in, it popped a little bit. I didn't think this was A++ at first because we've been so strong. I didn't love the idea of being a seller in this market in general, but at the same time, this does meet my criteria. This is a key level. We've had that false breakout potential, so it does meet my criteria. So I did take the trade. It put in this slightly lower high, and then when this low got taken out, that's when I can breathe easily because I then reduced my risk. And my risk initially was around about 20 points, and it was then cut down to about 12. So take off a bunch of the risk of the table. As it sold off into this area here, I moved my stop to break even, and I decided to take off 40% of my position down here. This is what I don't like about what I'm doing at the moment. I'm not letting things hit my target. I would rather have this as a mistake than taking loads and loads of bad entries, but this technically does leave a little bit of profit on the table. So I ended up making 1.39R on this trade, which was $278, and the potential was to make 1.55, which would have been 310. So I did leave, it's not a huge amount, but around about $30 of profit on the table. But that being said, really happy with this trade. Nailed the idea, got a good entry, and yeah, my exits aren't horrible in the end. Next opportunity, let's get rid of that real quick. Next opportunity came not that long after. So initially, I was thinking I might not take another trade and just call it for the day because this was a nice trade. But I saw that we were coming back into the bottom of this range, and whilst doing so, we set up another flag. And this is again, it's not an A++ setup because the flag, it's not quite down here, which is where I'd prefer it to be, but the same concept applies. This is an area where realistically anywhere from here to here I'd be happy being a buyer. So I want to be a buyer in this zone. We do set up a really nice bear flag, so anybody who is considering to go short is going to see, look, we rejected these highs, put in a false breakout, now we've put in a lower high, now we've got a flag. And we've kind of just got the opposite, where anybody who was looking to be, same round actually, longs and shorts, anybody who was considering to go short is now in the position, whether they took the flag, whether they took this, whether they, shorted the lower high. We've got a lot of people who are in short. And anybody who did get in long has most likely been stopped out below one of these levels. So we end up in a situation where, again, we've got lots of people short, nobody long, in an area where we've historically seen buying coming in. So it's an area I want to be a buyer. So we've got my criteria. It's kind of all there. Then it's a case of waiting for a bullish entry. And I got in here, and I think that this is, I think it's fine. It felt at the time like it might be a tiny bit early, but in hindsight, this is a pretty clear flag that sets up. I like the entry, and my target on this was just this high here and the break of that high. But I was wary that I was probably pretty close to my max daily profit on the day because I've got one of the slightly older Apex accounts where I can only make 30% of the 1,600 on these accounts in one day, which is around about $450. So when I realized that we got this push up here, I took off one contract, just into that high, and then I took another one off to essentially lock in at that point a really solid day, and then let the last one run to my target. So this trade, again, the potential was to make again around about 1.5R. I ended up only making 1.16R, so I made $152 on it, risking max of 132, which I'm happy with. But again, these are two trades that they did actually hit their target, so I could have made that little bit extra. But after that, there wasn't really anything left to do trading wise, so I took the rest of the day off. Yeah, there wasn't many setups anyway. Just looking back through, I finished trading at 3 o'clock, so there wouldn't have been anything to take. I'll quickly go through the one trade I took yesterday, which was not a good trade. I missed a long opportunity in here. Sorry, a short opportunity in here. We broke above the area of resistance. I didn't take this. It was just it was bang on 9:30. It was a bit early, but there was an opportunity there to get in short. And then with this was a bit forced. I think mentally I was a little bit on the tired side, so didn't come into the market the best. I decided that this area was enough to be a selling area. I don't think it's good enough. I think this is one where I should have just been waiting for a clearer area to set up. And then on top of that, I decided that this was a good enough lag. And again, I don't think it is. I can get behind what I was seeing, but it's not a setup. So I got in short on this, and again, even here, it was just too early. Yeah, we hadn't broken a flag. So even if I had taken this trade, even if I didn't deem this trade to be legitimate, the entry is actually not until here. It would have been a break-even trade, but it wasn't really a setup. And you know, when I looked at the rest of the day, there again wasn't a huge amount. This is something I have seen recently, that my setup hasn't been showing up quite as often as it did for a while. But I think that's down to, let's get rid of this now. I think that's down to the market being this strong. In these kind of markets, I don't get as many sellouts because I'm looking for a situation where we kind of reject a level multiple times and then try and break and fail. We're not getting that at the moment. And when things are like having small sell-offs, they're normally just kind of grinding back and then squeezing without really giving me a setup. So the current market is not perfect for me. So it really is a case of waiting for those 1 or 2 setups a day. And I did a much better job at that today, and hopefully can continue that next week. But yeah, again, that's the accounts. I'm really happy with how I traded this week. I'll really quickly show my calendar for April so far. So this week across all accounts up $691. Obviously these weeks I didn't make any recordings for, but overall it's been a pretty good month. Still a lot to improve on, but it's been a really good start to this journey recording, and hopefully it continues.